Hi there, it's Ken with RogueDeckBuilder.com here with February's episode of the Rogue Market. In this episode, I'm going to recap the cards that we picked for Modern last episode, January's episode of the Rogue Market, and also give my predictions for February's picks for Modern and Legacy, which cards that I am targeting, which cards I believe that you should target. So without further ado, let's go back to January's episode. In that episode, I gave the number one pick of Past in Flames. And if I were to go back and make another prediction back then with the information I had, I would yet again pick Past in Flames. But as you are all probably aware of, or should be aware of if you are a speculator, Modern had some bannings recently. And on one of those bannings was Seething Song, which was probably the keystone card to making a consistent third or fourth turn kill for Storm. And without Seething Song, we've basically just seen Storm die, and the type of players that seem to like to run Storm have switched over to Eggs, as Eggs can still get off a pretty good consistent turn 3, turn 4 kill with Eggs. So Past in Flames obviously didn't spike as much as I thought it would because of the bannings. And anyway, I still think it was a good prediction at the time, but I didn't foresee this banning, nor did any of the other speculators that I talked to. So it did, however, go up $1 since I made that prediction. So yeah, $2 to $3 isn't a bad gain. A little disappointing for my number one pick, but nevertheless, it did go up. I'm not sure what I would do with my... I'm going to hold on to my Past in Flames. I did pick up 9 copies of Past in Flames, and so I do have, a whole trade page full of Past in Flames I don't know what to do with, but I'm still thinking that these cards will be useful in the long term. Storm and Legacy is a deck, and it does use Past in Flames, and there is a few other cards that I've seen or a few other decks, combo decks, use Past in Flames in like Legacy and casual formats. But as far as the huge spike increase that I foresaw was basically based on Modern and the amount of players that were playing Storm. So again, my recommendation is hold on to them, or if you can move them, go ahead and move them. I don't foresee Past in Flames going up in the near future. Going on to number 2, and this was my big hit of the month, I picked Liliana the Veil. She saw $25 for the first time in a long time. She's consistently sat at $30 throughout the majority of her lifespan. And now we see her at $35. So $25 to $35 is a $10 increase, not too shabby. And basically, she is starting to see more constructed play. And also, it was just a matter of time before the Legacy and Modern caught up with her price tag. We saw Karn go nuts. I kind of wish I would have predicted Karn. Karn Liberated went from 20 to 40, and in some places he's selling as much as 45. And it was just a card that I didn't see having quite the spike increase that it did, but I guess you'd say that Tron would be the number 2 deck right now. If you look at the statistics on MTG Online and a few other places that show the Modern tournaments, Tron is a very popular deck. And there's actually a new Tron that it just came out, which I'll be talking about later, that goes along with my prediction for this month. But Tron is a very real deck, and Karn is a 4 of in that deck. And so we saw a huge spike increase of Karn from 20 to 40. Anyway, going back to Liliana, I knew it was just a matter of time before her price tag caught up from 25 to 35. And you could see her go up even more. Right now, I wouldn't... There are better targets to pick than Liliana at 35. I think that she may have one more opportunity to pick up at 30, right before or just barely after rotation. But she is used like crazy in both Legacy and Modern, and like I said, she's seen plenty of play in Standard right now. A lot of the Jund builds are actually throwing her in, as it is a way to deal with Boros Reckoner. Boros Reckoner is the new defining card of the format. If you were looking at the gate crash cards that have made the most impact, Boros Reckoner by far would be the card that is making the most impact. And I would say the number 2 card would be Stomping Grounds. But besides Stomping Grounds and Boros Reckoner, Gate Crash really hasn't mixed it up that much. It's just allowed Naya and RG Aggro, which were fringe decks before Gate Crash was released. It really gave them the mana to support the Stomping Grounds gave it the mana to support the colors, and So we haven't really seen much of Gatecrash affecting the format other than Boros Reckoner and good old Stomping Grounds. Anyway, so Liliana is a decent way to deal with Boros Reckoner, and we could see Liliana being in more decks besides Jund. Jund has a very good matchup versus the Boros Reckoner decks, and so it's probably the best home for Liliana at the moment, but it's only a matter of time before Esper and Grixis start brewing, and I think those decks will be very viable. Going on to the third card that I picked in January was Abrupt Decay. Abrupt Decay has actually seen a price decrease from 7 to 6. I think that this is Abrupt Decay's bottom. I'm going to call it that this right now, right here, is the bottom of Abrupt Decay. Abrupt Decay is another way to deal with Boros Reckoner, so I'm foreseeing a huge increase of this card being played in Standard, let alone it's still a very, very viable card in both Modern and Legacy. Modern and Legacy, or Legacy didn't have any bans, and so that format is unchanged. And the number 1 and number 2 deck, the number 1 deck is Jund, which is almost an exact copy of the Modern Jund, and the number 2 deck is Bug, that is black, blue, green, and they both use usually 3 to 4 copies of Liliana, so I don't see Liliana's price tag, or sorry, we're talking about Abrupt Decay here. Yes, they're using Liliana and Abrupt Decay, but both of those decks use a fair amount of Abrupt Decays, usually 2 to 3, even up to 4 copies in some of them, as that uncounterable ability in Legacy is amazing. Then on to Modern, with the bans, they did ban Bloodbraid Elf, which did hurt Jund, but if looking over the statistics from the past couple weeks, Jund is still a very real deck. I'd actually consider it the number 1 deck still. What people are doing is they're throwing in cards like Huntmaster of the Fells, Putrid Leech. There's like an Ooze that is 1 red, and whenever during your upkeep, if you have a black or green permanent, you put a +1/+1 count on it, and or permanent, you put a +1/+1 counter, so it can get very big very quickly. And then also like Olivia's are being thrown in for that spot. Just extra control is being thrown into that spot. So Jund did get hurt from the Bloodbraid Elf, but not completely maimed like Storm was by banning Seething Song. So Abrupt Decay at $6 with Boros Reckoner making a huge impact. I think Abrupt Decay is going to make Standard. It's going to make a splash in Standard again. It's going to be the answer for Boros Reckoner. I do think that Black-Green Fight Club is what they call it with Predator Ooze and Lava Trolls, is going to make a comeback. As it is another great deck against the RG Aggro and Naya decks. So Abrupt Decay is a very, very centered piece to that deck being able to work. So I do foresee a huge spike increase of Abrupt Decay. So pick them up now. If you picked them up at 7, just be patient. They'll go back up. If you can pick them up at now 6, I think that's a great bargain. Now moving on to number 4, which kind of is in the same theme of this Bug and Jund theme, is Deathrite Shaman. At the time of the prediction, I predicted it was $15. It is now at 15 again. This card has been bouncing all over the place. It was 15, then 18, then 15, then 12, then 14. Now it's back to 15. Deathrite Shaman is one of the best cards ever printed. It is seeing play in every format. It isn't going anywhere. We're seeing it every now and again in Standard. I think that picking up Deathrite Shaman at 15 is probably the lowest it's going to be again. If you had that window of opportunity to pick them up at 12 or at the pre-release when it was 10, yeah, of course that's the best time you could have picked it up. But now at 15, I think from now on, I don't see it going down past 15. I think the market is kind of flirted with its price to see where it sells the best, and every time they mark it down below 15, it sells out too quickly. So 15, it's going to stay out for quite a while until supply runs out and demand increases, and then it will go up from there. I think it's a very safe, if you want a safe investment, if you just want to pool a lot of money into one card, go with Deathrite Shaman. I have 11 of them right now, which I still trade for them. Every extra Deathrite Shaman I can get my hands on, I take it. So yeah, I still think it's a great pick, even though it didn't make any money in January to February. And my 5th pick was kind of also a bust because I was banking on Storm being a tier 1 deck in Modern, which was Epic Experiment. Epic Experiment was $2 at the time of prediction. It is still around $1.50 to $2 depending on where you buy your cards from. I think in the future, sometime down the road, this card will find play in either Legacy or Modern. So if you're going to pick it up for the long haul, I'm not much of a 1 to 2 year investor. I'm more of the month by month investor. So Epic Experiment isn't something I'm targeting right now, but if you're a person that is making speculation for the long haul, Epic Experiment will only go up in value. It's a bulk mythic right now. It can't go any lower than it is, and you should be okay. So if you picked it up at $2, no big deal. You can probably find someone to unload them off on at not a loss. If a loss, you're maybe losing a quarter or 50 cents, and it should be good in the long haul. It should increase from that $1.50 mythic price. Anyway, that was the recap. So let's just transition here over to my picks for this month for Modern. My number one pick, and for a while there, the number one deck after Jund had the banning of Bloodbraid Elf was white-blue control variants. There's the white-blue-red flash. There is a more control-based, just white-blue with Sun Titans and Phantasmal Images. There's ones that use Blade Splicers. There's just like I said, the good old UW Flash shell that just uses Vendilion Click, Restoration Angel, Geist of St. Traft. Anyway, those decks are very popular right now. They do very well against the format. They didn't do very well against Jund, especially because of Bloodbraid Elf. Bloodbraid Elf could just out-tempo them, out-card advantage them. And now with the banning of Bloodbraid Elf, a lot of people have switched over to the UW mid-range, flash, control-ish type build. And one of the key cards that they run 4 of in that deck is Celestial Colonnade. Celestial Colonnade right now is sitting around $4, and I think it's got a lot of room to grow. Recently it was $3.50, so it already has made that 50-cent increase, but I think it has a lot of room to go at $4 when it's a 4 of in a very popular deck. All the other cards in that deck are quite expensive, so we know that the people with deep pockets have already targeted this deck, and they're able to afford copies of Celestial Colonnades at way more than $4. So I foresee a big increase in Celestial Colonnade. Of course, all these cards that I usually predict do not have a chance of being reprinted in Modern Masters. This is a safe card. It, in my opinion, is only going to go up in value. A lot of people like these for EDH decks. Casual players love it. It's not going to go down from $4. I only foresee it going up. Number 2 card, which recently did go up, and I was kind of bummed this morning when I checked the prices because I was, it's halfway through February now, and I've been trying to get this video out with all the other stuff that's on my plate right now, and I've been eyeing this card forever, which is Batterskull, which is very expensive on an MTGO, but not expensive in Paper Magic. It was sitting at $8 until this morning, and now it's at $10. I still think at $10 it's a good pickup. Batterskull is going to be played in Legacy forever with Snapcaster Mage. It is Snapcaster's number 1 target, and we've also recently, in the deck that I mentioned earlier, the UW Control, they usually run Batterskull, and also one of the last major Modern tournaments actually was a UWR Flash versus UWR Flash mirror, and the Batterskulls were very good in that mirror. And they also brought in versus the Jund matchup, and it actually won the game both matches versus the Jund in the quarterfinals. So Batterskull is seeing played in Modern as well. I've seen it in Jund sideboards. I've seen it in the UW Control sideboards. I've seen it in a few other sideboards as well. Usually it is only 1 or 2 of copy, but it's a mythic, and even though it's just a 1 or 2 of, it can easily increase in price from that $10 that it's at right now. So if you haven't picked up your Batterskulls, I at least get a playset of these bad boys. I don't foresee them to be at 10 for much longer. If Karn is any, if what happens to Karn could happen to Batterskull, yeah, there's some serious profit made with Batterskull. Anyway, speaking of Karn, going on to number 3 is a deck that is included in Tron, or a card that is included in Tron, which is Wurmcoil Engine. Wurmcoil Engine is still sitting at $10, which is crazy because it's a 4 of in Tron, and we saw good old Karn go all the way from basically 15 to 40 in just a couple of weeks, and Wurmcoil stay stagnant at 10. It's only a matter of time before this guy catches up. I don't think that he'll be 40 like Karn because there was a lot of pre-release cards out there with Wurmcoil. Wurmcoil Engine was the promo card for the pre-release, and so there's tons of Wurmcoil Engines out there. But or I don't know if it's a pre-release or the game day, but either way, there's tons of those promo cards out there that keep the price down. Anyway, last week though, I was searching the MTGO, and there's this new deck that is on Modern that is making quite the waves, having quite the representation as well in the 3-1s and 4-0s finishes in MTGO, and it is called Bluetron. And Bluetron doesn't. The only way it cheats the Trons in is by Expedition Map. It doesn't have like Sylvan Scrying. Or all of the, it doesn't use all the chromatic spheres or whatever the card's called where you can just tap for and draw a card. So it doesn't cycle through a ton of artifacts. All it does is uses Expedition Map and control like remands and other counter spells to eventually get the combo or the Tron lands out to where it can cast a Wurmcoil Engine or a Mind Slaver. And it doesn't, some versions do use Emrakul and some don't. Some just use like, even I've seen Steel Hellkite. I've seen a few other cards that I've never even thought of, like the 7-11 Trample Shroud blue artifact guy, and uses treasure mages, 4 treasure mages to basically toolbox whatever you need. And it, like I said, it's making a lot of 4-0 finishes, and I think it has to do with Jund not being represented as much as it was. This is probably another deck that gets completely blown out by Jund's discard, but with Jund kind of Jund not seeing as much play as it did post banning, that these other kind of over the top decks like Tron are starting to see a lot more play. So if you haven't picked up your Wurmcoil Engines, they're still $10. I foresee them to probably be 15 to 20 by the end of this month, as they are a hot card in that blue Tron, and then Tron overall is just seeing so much more play than it did before. On to number 4 is a sideboard card, but I do believe this sideboard card has a lot of room to grow, even though I do believe it was printed as either a 3 of or even a 4 of in a pre-constructed deck, which is Torpor Orb. And Torpor Orb is amazing. There are so many decks that Torpor Orb just plain shuts down. I'll go through a list right here. UWR Flash, it hits Restoration Angel, Snapcaster Mage, Vendilion Click, Kiki Jiki Pod, or even Malaria Pod. It hits half the deck has come into play abilities like Kitchen Finks, which is one of the huge combos for it. Hits Kiki's trigger with Deceiver Exarch or Pestermite. It hits the Zealous Conscript. It basically shuts down Pod. So those 2 decks are very, very, very played. It also hits another deck that is very, very popular, which is Splinter Twin. It completely shuts that deck down. So between the Pods, the Flashes, and the Splinter Twins, that's probably a third of your meta that you'll be facing. So Torpor Orb is basically an auto-include in any deck that I didn't mention as a sideboard. Red Deck Wins, which is very, very popular right now with Skullcrack, is they put 3 Torpor Orbs in the sideboard, and this kind of does double duty because a lot of the people's answer to Red Deck Wins is to put like Obstinate Baloth or Kitchen Finks from their sideboard and post sideboard, and Torpor Orb is the answer to that. So it also shuts down Soul Sisters too. I didn't mention that. I don't like to mention that because Soul Sisters is my deck, but yeah, any card that hates against my deck I don't usually like to promote. But anyhow, as a speculation standpoint, I've been trying to find Torpor Orbs. This card's a very hard card to find. I might just end up buying it from the store at $1.50 because I think this will double in price. Probably stay at around a $3 to $5 sideboard card. Sideboard cards sometimes have a hard time getting above that $5 barrier, especially if they don't have a lot of casual appeal, and Torpor Orb is one of those that probably doesn't have a lot of casual appeal. There's also another deck that is getting quite popular, which is kind of an artifact control deck, and with is it Dust Mantle? I think it's Dust Mantle Guild Mage, the black-blue Dimir Guild Mage, that with Mind Crank, it combos off for infinite damage. Well, basically, every time they take a life, they mill a card, and every time they mill a card, they take a life. And Torpor Orb is an inclusion in that, as it is another artifact for Tezzeret to find, or for these other, it's an artifact-based deck as well, as an alternate win condition. So Torpor Orb is probably mainboarded in that deck as well. Anyway, that is my advice on Torpor Orb. It's a very safe investment. I don't ever see it going down from $1.50. It's probably the highest reward out of the list so far. Number 5 is Sun Titan. I did initially pick Goblin Guide, but after looking at prices this morning, I did see that Goblin Guide has jumped up to $8 from the $5 it was at when I originally made this list. So I think Goblin Guide, I don't see it going up much past $8. It was a promo at the Grand Prix. There's a lot of the promos going around, so I think it will keep the regular Goblin Guide price down. But anyway, so I scratched it out and put Sun Titan. Sun Titan is right now at $3.50. And it is a mythic that's seeing quite a bit of play in the UW Control deck that is very popular. Sun Titan is also an extremely popular casual card, and I have a hard time. I know it's been reprinted once, so it's had its original printing and then it's reprint, and it also was a promo. So I know there's a ton of cards out there, a ton of different versions of Sun Titan out there, but I still think that $3.50 is quite low for a card this powerful. Like I said, it is starting to be played a lot in that UW Control modern deck, and I don't see that going anywhere. So let's just recap. My number 1 pick is the Celestial Colonnade. Number 2 is Batterskull. Number 3 is Wurmcoil Engine. Number 4 is Torpor Orb. And number 5 is Sun Titan. I'll have a couple more rogue markets this month. My next video I'll be talking about which cards for Standard to pick up and recap the Standard picks. This is Kevin from RogueDeckBuilder.com. Thanks for watching.